What's happening, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Fighting Words. Anthony Sanfilippo's here, back from Clearwater. I'm Bob Wankel. Friday morning, March 20th, 6 days away from the start of the 2026 Major League Baseball season. The Phillies will host the Texas Rangers, right, on Thursday afternoon, a little after 4 o'clock at Citizens Bank Park, without Harry the K's in left field, Anthony.
Unreal. Corporate sponsorship kills everything, man.
I want to talk about that, actually, because that was the hot button issue on Phillies Twitter last night. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on that. But there's a lot to talk about in terms of baseball. And before we get to the Phillies, I do want to note, I remember a Slack conversation with Russell Joy maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. It was late at night. Everyone probably, and when I say everyone, certainly me, had a couple drinks in me. And I remember that there was a heated debate about whether or not baseball was dead. Baseball was a dying sport. And Russ, predictably, took the stance that baseball has had its day and it's done and over with. And it's very parochial. And if you're in Philly, you care about the Phillies. But baseball as a sport, by and large, is dead. Look at the WBC. You see some of those ratings that come out. It did a little over 8 million on Sunday night when the Dominican Republic and U.S. played, and that was on FS1. And then you fast forward and you see the numbers that it did in the final on, what was it, I guess, Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And it surpassed the 7-game average of the NBA Finals. I mean, baseball is hot right now. And you see it at the youth level. Walk into any Dick's Sporting Goods right now, and you turn to the right, and it is just like a shrine to baseball and softball. And it's great to see where the sport is, the interest in the sport on a local level, on a national level. There's some real juice as we hit into this season. And I say that not just to dunk on Russ and his idiotic take, but I say it more so to point out what's at stake when we get through this season and what looms with that labor negotiation. You can't mess this up, and they're going to mess it up, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's you're spot on with this, Bob, because baseball is has had a renaissance. And was there a time where, things were dipping in baseball and only the diehards were really more interested in the game, and, the casual fan was dropping off a little bit? Sure. It had that stretch. I think a lot of sports go through those things, other than really the NFL, which is Teflon to anything. They can have controversies and get more popular. So I think every sport kind of goes through that, but baseball certainly having its renaissance, and the World Baseball Classic helps. Now, let's be honest. I think having the World Baseball Classic 1 month after the Olympics probably helps that.
I totally agree. I think that baseball was able to piggyback off the juice of the Olympics, and namely that hockey tournament.
Right.
And there's no question about it. Right. But I will say, look, my daughter had her first T-ball practice, and I promise we'll get to the Phillies. You didn't come here to talk T-ball today. But she had her first T-ball practice last night. And there's a complex. There's 7 fields in the township that I live in. And, I mean, it was crazy. Like, the thing is just loaded. There are kids everywhere. There's 8 different T-ball teams in this township that I live in. It's absolutely crazy to just see, like, the momentum behind the sport right now and the interest behind the sport. And I would actually pivot that directly to the Phillies. And I will tell you that I spent a lot of this winter, and this always happens to some extent, but I feel it more than ever. This winter, I've kind of been feeling like, it's hard to get up for this. It's the same team. They changed the right fielder, but, like, who really cares? We've seen this story play out now 3-4 straight years in a row. I just can't get up for this. I don't have the same juice for this. And now here we are as we creep into mid-March, and the season's a week away. And I actually feel more juiced up for this season. I might be in the minority here, but I actually have more juice for this season right now than I have in recent years, relative to recent years. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the momentum behind Painter. Maybe I'm riding the WBC high. Maybe I saw Harper go deep in the 8th, and I'm like, ooh, maybe he's got an FU tour coming. Like, I don't know what it is, but right now in this moment, I'm pretty pumped up for it. I really am.
And this has changed since our last couple episodes where you were kind of meh about
and it's not that I'm like super optimistic about the Phillies. I don't have Phillies in the World Series all of a sudden. I'm not trying to do the fanboy thing. I want to get to Angelo Cataldi's comments a little bit too, and talk about how that relates to your coverage, the Phillies coverage. Yep. That was one of my topics today. I wanted to actually hit on. I'm curious to see what you had to say about that, being a veteran of the game and all. But it's not to get carried away, but like it just something in me over the last, I don't know, 10 days or so has sort of turned the corner a little bit. And so, we'll see what happens here.
I think, Bob, part of it has to be that there's been a lot of positive news that has kind of come out of Philly spring training. And I think that's, even though the skeptics will still say, oh, it's just spring training, it doesn't matter. Or, oh, yeah, wake me up in October. It's because they're running it back, whatever they're saying. When you look at it, some of the concerns that I think those of us who are close followers of the team are starting to look less concerning. Just a little bit. I'm not saying, oh my God, all of a sudden these guys are all going to have career years.
Yeah.
But there are things that have happened in spring training. And you could look at Adolis Garcia. You can look at Jesus Luzardo changing his changeup. You could look at Zach Wheeler's going to return sooner than maybe everybody thought. You can look at the way Aaron Nola has pitched, including in the World Baseball Classic. You can see that Bryson Stott has continued to hit like he did at the end of last season. Alec Boehm looks healthy for what it's worth. There's some bullpen arms that are that you like in spring training and go, actually, this bullpen's deeper than I thought it was going to be. Like there are a lot of things to like about the Phillies and to be excited about the Phillies. That all of a sudden, maybe with these were question marks, and we'll see starting next Thursday. This could all be smoke and mirrors, and we could all be like, all right, we were right all along. But so far, so good.
Yeah, look, I mean, I agree. There have been a lot of positive developments here over the last, 6 or 7 days. But it's funny how some of those, like, let's set aside Zach Wheeler. I think that if you would have gone back 3 or 4 months ago, we would have said, man, if he's on the mound before Memorial Day, I'll take it.
Right.
I would go conservative and say, if you give me Memorial Day, I'll sign on for that so long as he's back June and beyond. Now you're starting to feel like there's momentum. And I know that he still has more hurdles to clear. He's going to throw on Monday,
minor league game,
simulated, or is it simulated or live against minor league competition?
Minor league live. Yeah. It's live. Yeah.
So, look, huge box to check there. But I think that there is some optimism that you could see him on a major league mound by the end of April.
Yeah.
And we'll see. But that changes the math on things. That's 4 or 5 starts from an elite level pitcher that aren't, from Taijuan Walker or worse,
right.
and that changes the math when you're trying to figure out, hey, this is a very top-heavy division with the Mets and the Braves and the Phillies, and you're all talking about teams that could win anywhere between 90 and 95 games. Like, that's critically important to get those 4 starts out of that guy that you might not have been counting on a month ago. Yeah. So you look at that, and that's medical. What I'm trying to figure out right now is some of the things that we're seeing that we feel really good about. How real are they, and how do they translate when you get into next week? And I guess there's probably no better example of this question than Adolis Garcia, right? Like, you look at what he has done this week, and if you just look at the spring training numbers, and I want to talk about spring training numbers and how to digest them in a moment, but you look down, all of a sudden you're like, wow, he's had a really good spring. He's hitting 303. He's got 439 on base percentage. He's slugging over 500. He's, 33 at bats, 40 plate appearances. Like, these are pretty good spring training numbers for a guy that you really are hoping can provide something for you in terms of right-handed protection in your lineup. And so that's wonderful. But I go back, and you got to understand that at the beginning of this week, if we were having the same conversation, if we recorded this on Monday morning, you'd be like, dude, how do you interpret his spring training? He's been horrible. So, I mean, before his 4-for-4 day the other day, he was hitting 192. I mean, so should I be excited about what I'm seeing here? I know you had an opportunity to cover it live. You talked to him. Like, how do I interpret this?
Yeah, the one thing I can say is, and look, I don't put any stock in the numbers, good or bad, right? The one thing I will say is that they have been working on things with him, changing his approach. His stance is different, right? I mean, they're trying to get him more short to the ball, in zone. He's got a little bit of, and Rob said it. Rob Thompson said he's got a little bit of a whippy swing, right? And so what they're trying to do is shorten that up, less chase. And so I think that's the one stat you want to look at and go, that's the one that sticks out to me, is the on base percentage, 439, because it incorporates a bunch of walks.
Yeah, he's walked 7 times in 40 plate appearances.
Yeah, like that's really good, right? And so getting him to stay in the zone is going to make him a better player. Regardless, I mean, he's been an on base guy of less than 300 in his last couple of years. Like, it's been terrible. And so if you get him to start walking more and take those pitches and force pitchers to throw him strikes, then he becomes a more dangerous hitter. So I think that the work that they're doing with Kevin Long and the hitting coaches are doing with Adolis Garcia to get him to be shorter to the ball, staying in the zone, I think that is the benefit that you're seeing this week. And it's been something they've been working on. And you got to remember, like, he's changing something that he had been doing for years. So, of course, at the beginning of spring training, it's probably a lot more difficult. That's why you're seeing the weak contact. And you and I had been talking about it like offline, and we've been just texting back and forth like, man, those swings look terrible.
Yeah, feeble.
They really do, right? But now all of a sudden they look good. Mm-hmm. But what happened? I mean, even that 4-for-4 game, like, every ball was hit over 105 miles an hour. Like, I mean, he stung them all. And it's like, well, what changed overnight? And it's just a matter of, I think, getting comfortable with this new swing that he's doing courtesy of Kevin Long.
So you look at him, and I think that, like, for me, it's certainly encouraging to see. Like, there's no way that you don't process this week and say, all right, like, maybe given that there's a storyline, given that there's an explanation behind it, it's not just, well, he's just doing what he's doing. He's doing what he always did. Like, you can latch on to the fact that there's been a correction in the swing and say, all right, well, now we're starting to see it pay off. Maybe I can get a little excited about that. But otherwise, I can't look at the stat line and just say, oh, wonderful, this will translate. Beyond that, I know we've talked about this player or these players, on a couple different shows this spring, but, like, again, now I look at Bryson Stott and I say, does the production this month matter? No, not necessarily, but he continues to hit well. So OPS continues to sit north of 1,000. He's hitting well over 300. He's hitting the ball consistently in the air to the pull side. He's not hitting the ball in the air to the opposite field nearly as much, which to me is the biggest takeaway of this spring. No more lazy fly balls to left field. Let's eliminate that from your game. I know how he finished the final 2 months of last year, and to see that kind of carry over to this spring, again, while I'm not going to sit here and read a stat line and tell you that he's going to be an all-star this year, because I don't think he will be, can I take all of the information that I have and sort of lay that out there and say, I feel like we might get the best version to date of Bryson Stott? I feel like that is not a ridiculous red-colored glasses thing to say.
Yeah, we might get the best version of Bryson Stott, but you know what's going to end up happening, Bob?
Well, he's going to platoon still.
Yes, and it's going to drive people nuts.
Yeah.
It's going to drive people crazy because we're going to see Bryson Stott hit right-handed pitching very well. Like, I'm pretty confident in that. Like, I think that that's the player that you're going to have. And then you're going to get everybody screaming, well, why isn't he an everyday player?
Yeah.
And it's honestly because Edmundo Sosa is very good against lefties. Very good. And look, if it gets to a point where Alec Boehm's struggling at third base, right? Maybe you try Sosa at third.
Because it's not going to be Aiden Miller, at least not until August.
Right.
If everything goes well, if he gets healthy and gets back and plays well and earns it. 2-3 months ago, we're like, wow, Miller's knocking on the door. We saw, who was it? The one ESPN.com writer picked him to win Rookie of the Year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he's a factor at this point. So now Sosa becomes that 1A or that 1B protection, that insurance at third base. Is there any chance that he becomes protection for what the Phillies have in terms of their lack of outfield depth?
They haven't trotted him out there. They really
haven't. Is that
haven't.
like a little bit surprising to you? I mean, I know it's Crawford's show in center, and I know they're bullish on the Kemp-Marsh split.
Well, I'll tell you what, the name that kind of came up, and I was a little surprised to hear it, Bob, After my last day down there, I guess it was Tuesday, we're sitting in Rob's office, and I think it was Matt Gelb asked him about the outfield depth. And the name he brought up was Dante Nori.
Well, he was on the list of things to talk about today.
Yeah, and so it was a little bit of a surprise because I wasn't thinking that he was even in the conversation for 26. I kind of thought he was a 27 guy, right? And then I followed, and Rob was talking fondly about him, and I said to him, when you watch the way he hit in the World Baseball Classic against Major League pitching, does that, in your mind, change the outlook for when he could be ready to go? And Rob's answer to me was, it's not my decision, but it definitely changed for me. So, I hear that, and I sit there and say,
it's so hard, right? Like, it's so hard to parse through this because, I like Dante Nori, and I thought that he had an encouraging minor league season as a 20-year-old a year ago. He got to Reading. He showed that he's a competent player, that there's something to build on here. But he didn't have, an electric year. And he had 24 plate appearances in the World Baseball Classic. And I know he hit 400, and I know he popped a couple home runs, and he had a bunt. And he is a baseball player, right? He looks the part. Yeah. And he looks the part of a player that this city in particular will love. Hard-nosed, does it the right way, can do everything well. I can see it. I can dream on Dante Nori, right? But, isn't it a little bit hey, that's 24 bats, or 24 plate appearances, 20 bats. We're all of a sudden this guy's going to be a factor this year because he played well in a tournament.
I know it's a tough call. And look, ultimately,
that's surprising because the Phillies are the most conservative organization on earth when it comes to this stuff. So the fact that even Rob would give you that,
is
a lot.
It surprised me. It really surprised me. Because I've been thinking all along, Bob, that somebody's going to get this last bench spot, whoever it is, whether it's Dylan Moore or it's Brian De La Cruz or it's Garrett Stubbs or whoever the hell's going to get.
It's a shame that Felix Reyes can't run around out there, right?
I know, right? I know. I mean,
just based on if performance at all matters.
Yeah, I mean he can't play any position but first base, and that's a problem.
They've got those, yeah.
And so whoever that guy is going to be that guy. And all along, I've been thinking, well, it's either one of those guys who's barely going to play. They have to get the Cody Clemens treatment, get 7 at bats in a month, or they're going to go get somebody from outside the organization, right? So that doesn't mean that. So I look at it and say, it's not like Dante Nori is going to come in here and he's going to make the team. He's going to go probably to AAA. They haven't said yet, but I got to think they might give him a shot at AAA to start and see how he does. And he could be the guy that you call upon come late May if something is needed.
I think I read that their plan, at least, I mean, it's not formalized, but I think that the plan was to send him to Reading to start, which is where he ended the season.
Maybe.
Now, within 3 weeks, within 6 weeks, could that change? Yeah, I think so. But
could be. Yeah, well, so Rob, when we asked him again, that was the other day, so a lot could have changed since. But he said he wasn't sure where they were going to start and whether it was going to be AA or AAA. So they hadn't decided yet. So,
do you look at what? And again, I think that this is this whole podcast is predicated upon the question of what you have observed over the last 3 weeks. Is it real? Is it not real? Is it somewhere in between? You can't sit here and say that none of this matters. None of it matters at all. I mean, it doesn't, in that you can't take spring training statistics and say, I will now be able to determine what a player is going to do this season because of it. I agree with that. Anybody that's watched baseball knows better to say and not get swept up by what they watch in March and how it translates once the lights go on. We all know that. Everyone listening to this podcast knows that. At the same time, though, when a 21-year-old kid gets on a high-profile national stage and plays at that level off the heels of an encouraging season, in which he earned promotions. Like, yeah, like could it be realistic that you put him in the conversation? Maybe. Should I be excited about Garcia? I don't know. I'm a little bit more like, I need to see that. Like, I'm not quite like over the moon there. Stott, I'm certainly encouraged by directionally. But then, like, on the flip side of it, Trey Turner's hitting like 110 this spring. Are you concerned about Trey Turner after 30 at bats in Clearwater? 610. You know, I mean, I don't know. Like, do you put any stock in that? Do you put any stock in the fact that Kyle Schwarber, after he hit a home run against Britain, looked like dog shit for 4 games? Like, does that bother you? Like, you know, it's like you got to look at it both ways.
Yeah, and I think it's you know, you take everybody differently, right? I think established players, you don't put a lot of stock in anything in spring training. Really, you don't, just because they're just going through the motions a lot of the times, right? The Harpers, the Schwarbers, the Turners, those guys are going to be in. You're batting 1, 2, 3 in your lineup, like.
Well, you know that they're batting 1, 2, 3 in your lineup, but like, let's go to Harper specifically, because man, there's been a lot of hot air about Bryce Harper over the last couple of weeks. I mean, to the point where it's hard for me to even really like listen to it. We've talked about Bryce Harper. We've talked about the elite comments from Dave Dombrowski. We've talked about what this season might look like. Is he poised to kind of show that he's still one of the better players in this league? Or are we simply just getting good Bryce Harper? I think that that's a fair conversation. It's one that certainly we have had. We will probably continue to have as this season kicks off. Where I start to get aggravated is where you watch on Twitter, he's in the World Baseball Classic and he swings and misses at 92. And everyone's like, oh, he can't even catch up to 92 anymore. Oh, he can't hit fastballs at all. And I'm like, look, I've seen the numbers. I've seen where he has struggled with high velocity, or he's on a little bit of a decline year over year in terms of hitting velo. I get it. He's seeing more spin than ever. Obviously, the plate discipline stuff became a little bit of an issue last year. It's not that these issues aren't real, and it's not to say that he isn't on the decline. Like, maybe he is. These are fair things to talk about. But when I see people freak out every time he misses a fastball now, I'm like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? And that home run the other night was awesome. It was a cool moment. I know in the grand scheme of things, it won't really matter. It probably has no bearing on his 2026 season. It was cool to see him rise to the occasion and have that moment. But I think for some people, they look at that and they go, I now feel so much better about Bryce Harper. Like, I really do. I like Joe Giglio a lot. We've talked about him on the show. You know that I've communicated with him directly. I know that he takes a lot of heat in the city. I get all that. But when I turned on the radio last week and I hear him talking about Bryce Harper, and like, I need to see something from Bryce tonight in a quarterfinal game to make me feel better about Bryce Harper. I'm like, dude, come on, man, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And look, there's a lot to talk about with Bryce, right? I mean, he hits that home run the other night in a huge spot. And it's just evidence that the guy still knows how to meet the moment, right? Still knows how to do it.
But he didn't do it in 4 games against the Dodgers last year.
Right. He may not do it every time, right? But he still knows how to meet the moment. And he's come close a couple times and just missed on a couple swings, right? So like you know that dude is still there. There are things to be concerned about. And I thought that this was an interesting thing, and it actually just came up this morning as we were getting ready to start. Our old friend, or specifically my old friend, but I know you know him as well, Rob Motti, is over at Clearwater today, and he was talking to Bryce Harper this morning. And in the interview, Bryce Harper told Rob that he's aiming to draw between 140 and 150 walks this season. His career high is 130, Bob. That was with Washington back in 2018. And then in his 2 MVP seasons, he walked 124 times and 100 times. Okay. So 140, 150 walks. That's insane. That's an insane goal. All right. He's probably
what did he do his MVP years were 130 and 100, I believe.
124 and 100. Yeah, 124, 100. So like it's an insane goal. It's probably one you don't reach, but you always try and set the goal somewhere beyond what's reality, right? So I'm okay with that. But I like hearing him say that because I honestly believe that the thing that hurt Harper the most last season was that he got away from being a patient hitter.
Yeah.
And if he gets back to being a patient hitter, then I think you'll see the Bryce Harper of old. Now, can he maintain that? Can he keep that mentality going that he has right now going into the season? We'll see. But I like hearing him say that and not being something that is being foisted upon him by the organization.
All right, well, I hear that, and then I have two immediate thoughts. Number one, do you think that last year he became an impatient hitter, not because he was trying to do too much for the team, but because he felt that he was not being respected or thought about in a way that measures with some of the game's elite, and thus it was like, I'm going to show these guys, I'm going to do damage, I'm going to – and it kind of caused him to go outside of what he otherwise would do, you know.
Yeah.
He used the word pressing, like they won 96 games. I don't think he felt the need to press in relative to the team's success, but did he feel the need to press because he could sense that every time you open up Instagram, you see baseball send out a message or a post, Bryce Harper's nowhere to be found. It's Shohei Ohtani, it's Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, you know. Right. Does he feel that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think he certainly does. I don't know if it was the sole driving force. I think it's a little bit of both, right? It's probably a little bit of, you know, he felt he needed to do more to carry the team, but also a little bit of that lack of respect. And I can point out for the second part. I mean, you remember he had that big week out in that series in San Francisco, and he said after the game, I am still one of the best players in the game. And then he came back home and had another big game and said it a second time in front of more media in Philadelphia, right? So the fact that he says that tells you that it's on his mind, right? That there is a little bit of a.
Well, we'll know if next Thursday he comes up to the plate and his walk-up songs "Forgot About Dre." Like, then we'll know. That'll verify it for us. But there's that, and then there's also a mindset where, like, I wonder about this on a couple different levels. If his plan is, I'm going to try to walk 140 times this year, there has to be a little bit of an admission in that, at least subliminally, that like, I don't think I'm going to be adequately protected. And thus I know how they're going to pitch me. And I need to recognize that better this year. And it's not like a direct punch at Alec Boehm, but it like sort of feels like, just based on what he said about Judge at the World Baseball Classic, the fact that he's not wrong, and I think everyone that has a set of eyes kind of understands it, like, it's not ideal protection in the middle of the lineup for him if it's going to be Harper Boehm. Like, do you think that it's yet another recognition of that? Him basically coming out and saying, I probably need to walk 130, 140 times this year to be the best version of myself because I know what's in store for me?
Could be. And as I just want to point out, because I know people comment and they think, oh, we're ignoring their comments. But Joseph Carmison says there's only one person I'm not excited about. It's Alec Boehm.
And he's had a nice spring. Like,
yeah. And he says, and he followed up, I figured Boehm would start off as the 4-hole hitter, but Adolis is actually doing good. He's a better fit for the 4-hole. Just to point out, and I think that you're going to see two different lineups, but the Phillies just announced their lineup for today. Now, we're recording this on Friday. They just announced their lineup for today's home game against the Detroit Tigers. Now, Tarek Skubal's starting for the Tigers today. So it's a lefty, right? I have a feeling, Bob, that this
couldn't have thrown those innings on Tuesday.
I know, right? I have a feeling that this is your verse lefty lineup for the start of the season. Turner, Schwarber, Harper, Boehm, Garcia 5, Realmuto 6, Sosa 7 at second base, Kemp 8 in left field, Crawford 9 in center. Yeah. That's probably your verse left lineup.
Yeah.
What you're seeing today. So in that case, Alec Boehm is batting behind Harper. Now, I think against righties, they're going to flip Harper and Schwarber. I think Harper's going to hit 2 and Schwarber's going to hit 3. So he has some protection against a right-handed pitcher. I think that's the case, right? But I think because Boehm technically hits lefties pretty well, that they feel like they can get that's good enough protection against a lefty behind Harper. I think that's how they're going to go about it.
I would probably agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that they referenced it several times. We're like, go back to the first half of 2024, and how Bohm had 45 extra base hits, and he was he produced a ton of runs, and I guess, we'll see. I do think that Alec Bohm's a little bit better than what we saw last year, and I do think that there were probably multiple injuries that impacted his game. It's just that even at his best, I'm still like,
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. And there would be nothing better, Bob, if we were wrong about Alec Bohm. Like, think about it.
Well, this is the year. I mean, if he's going to do it, I mean, you talk about fork in the road type years for a player, and not that he will start. He's a starting caliber player in this league. But if he's going to be like a guy, this is the year. You got to go hit 285 and have 40, 50 doubles and hit 15, 20 home runs. And like, you got to go do it now. This is the time.
Yeah. And I've said this, my take on Alec Bohm has always been, I don't have a problem with Alec Bohm as a third baseman, right? Like I don't. I think that
you have a problem with him hitting cleanup for
he's
trying to win a championship.
He's miscast in the role that he's put in.
And in that way, I actually I don't feel sorry for him. That's not the right way to say it, but I sympathize with the fact that the evaluation of him is so much about the context in which he exists than it is really about him, and that's just a different way of saying what you said. I mean, I totally agree.
Right. If Alec Bohm was hitting 6 or 7 with regularity in this lineup, he's perfect for third base. It's fine. Like he could be there. Nobody's complaining about it. His numbers would equate to that guy in your lineup. It would be totally fine. It's the where he's at in a run producing role where he needs to be better, and has not to this point in his career been that guy.
Yeah, it's hard not to you look at him and the question mark about his ability to protect in the middle of that order. We talked about Garcia. To me, like, you could roll out 5 different outcomes on very opposite ends of what his season looks like, and I wouldn't be surprised by any of them.
Yeah.
If he popped 32 home runs and drove in 100 runs this year, I'd be like, yeah, okay. Like, not outrageous outcome. If you told me that his numbers were like Nick Castellanos's last year or worse, I'd say like, yeah, he's been on the decline the last 2 years. At least he could catch the ball, I guess. But what did you expect? Right. You've gone dumpster diving the last couple of years with the Max Keplers of the world. Like, it doesn't work. It has not worked here. So like, if it goes that way, I wouldn't be shocked. But given the volatility and the extreme outcomes that are in play in right field, I don't know what we're getting out of center field. I guess I've been fairly impressed or encouraged. Like, I think what we've seen from Crawford is like sort of what you can expect, I would think. I mean, you want to go deeper into this, we can. It's not where I'm landing the plane necessarily, but like if he hits 260 to 275 with very little pop, but makes things happen with his athleticism and plays an adequate center field, like I think that's what I expect. Do you expect something different from him?
No, and I think this is exactly. I think what you're seeing in spring training is what you're going to get out of Crawford.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we knew he's not going to hit 300 like he did in AAA or 330, whatever the hell he hit in AAA. He's just not. Right.
This is like, you talk about the numbers not mattering, but like you just said it. He's hitting 273, which feels about right. Yeah. He does not walk, because why would you walk him? So he's got a 320 on base percentage.
Right.
He doesn't hit for power, so he's got a 340 slug, and he has a 660 OPS. Like, that feels about right to me.
Yes, it does. It does. And that's probably what he's going to be. And, you just hope that the defense in center field is good. Right. Yeah. I mean, it is. It is what it is. But I'm coming right to left here. The guy that you said he's probably going to hit 8th, opening day in terms of the way that you lay out the lineup is Otto Kemp. And like, this is the thing. Like, he is, as much as we talk about like, can Bryson Stott take the next step, or like this is a make or break year for Alec Bohm. Like, these are guys that are established. We've been through it with them. So it feels like it's not just about their impact on this Phillies team, but it's also like where their careers are heading. Yeah.
Otto Kemp's not at the same part of his career path, but he might be just as important in the whole grand scheme of things, because I don't know what we're getting out of some of these guys, nor do I know what we're getting out of Otto Kemp, but like, they need him to be good, because one thing that we do know is that there is no safety net in left field in terms of being able to hit left-handed pitching. There is none. Like, he has to hit.
Yeah.
Has to hit.
Well, so I talked to Otto in the game earlier in the week. They played Detroit and Lakeland. And they got beat pretty bad. 13-6, I think, was the final.
Dude, some of their games have been tough to watch.
Yeah. But Otto hit a home run, a 3-run homer in that game. And so I talked to him afterwards, and it was interesting because he was saying to me, he said, because I asked how important, I said, for you as a player, do spring training numbers matter? Like, we know that ultimately they don't, but for you as an individual, do they matter to you? And he said they do for this reason. He said, last year when I was playing through that fractured kneecap and the shoulder injury that he had to make changes to the way he was swinging the bat in order to stay in the lineup. He couldn't stick with what he had been previously. Otherwise, he would not have been able to play because it would have hurt too much, right? And he said, so what happens is you get so used to that you come into spring and you immediately want to start doing what you did last year, even though you're healthy now. And so he said that he was trying to get back to being the guy that he was. And so it's a matter of, I want to see what those numbers look like swinging the way I used to swing. And he had some ups and downs this spring, but he's been decent, right? I mean, he's not been blow you away, but he's been decent. I mean, he's got that OPS at 954.
Yeah.
Because he's got 8 of his 11 hits this spring have been extra base hits, 4 doubles and 4 homers. He leads the team in RBI with 13, but he also leads.
And if that's going to be the style that he brings to the table this year, that's fine, considering especially what you have in center field. Like, you're going to I don't need him to hit 300. I need him to have some pop.
Yeah, exactly. But he also leads the team this spring in strikeouts. He struck out 16 times in 49 plate appearances. That's a lot, right? So you're going to get some good and some bad, I think, with Otto Kemp. But as long as he's producing, as long as his OPS is north of 800, especially against lefties, he's going to be just fine.
I would prefer to have seen a Trey Turner that got left off the World Baseball Classic U.S. team come out and play well this spring.
Yeah.
I don't care that he hasn't necessarily. I don't put any stock whatsoever in his numbers, though I do see them. Like, I'm aware of them. But I'm not really even at a place where I would say we need to talk about him in any level of depth. However, a player that is a veteran who has been around the block, who has had an absolutely dreadful spring, is Brandon Marsh. And I know Brandon Marsh, for the better part of last year, hit 300. And, once he got established into a role, did very well in it. We've been down this road with him before. This time he's not going to be given the opportunity, at least a lengthy opportunity, to have at bats against lefties. That's good, I think. You cannot go into a season with that being an answer at this point. That being said, like, given the way that he started last year, in which he was just maybe one of the worst baseball players I've ever seen for like 4 weeks. Like, I mean, it was impossibly bad. Like, his statistics were just god awful. Is there anything to put into because again, we talk about guys like having important years, like entering a big season on a personal level. Like, do I put anything into him being 5 for 32 with 8 strikeouts at $156, like with 0 pop, like at all?
Yeah. And I'll tell you what I think, Bob. I think that the Phillies went into the spring thinking Brandon Marsh will hit 5th against right-handed pitchers. Like, I think that was their thought coming into the spring.
But like, I want to be careful. I'm sorry, and I didn't mean to cut you off. I know I did.
Yeah.
Let me just say this: like, he has 1 extra base hit in 32 at bats this spring.
Yeah.
Would I be surprised against a right-hander his first start if he has a double and a home run in the first game? And we say, see, just the latest example why spring training doesn't matter.
Right.
I get it. Like, I don't want to stray too far from the disclaimer that we put on this show at the top, but.
But what I was about to say was, I think the Phillies are going to slide him down the lineup again. I think Stott's going to hit 5th against righties, and Marsh will probably hit 7th.
Man, 5th. It's just like not what it should be.
I know. But with Stott hitting the way he's been hitting, maybe you could start the season that way.
Yeah, maybe. I hate that. I hate taking a guy that's succeeding and giving him maybe a little bit more than you theoretically ought to, simply because of him being hot.
Well, it's a combination of him being hot and Marsh not.
Do you think there's a world where, like, as the season goes on, Bryson Stott becomes more of a top of the order hitter again?
I think so. The only concern that I have there is you want Turner, Schwarber, Harper batting in the first inning.
Yeah.
Right.
They seem to be pretty adamant about that as well.
Yeah. And that's the only thing I can say, Bob, is because I look at it and go, how can you potentially have Stott hit, like, let's say he leads off, because I mean he could be a leadoff hitter. Then you're bumping Schwarber or Harper down to the 4th spot, and you may not have them bat in the first inning.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that.
Yeah.
And you can't go 3 lefties in a row, even if you say, well, drop Turner. Like, you can't do 3 lefties. So, like, I think that there's a chance that he does it if somebody needs a day off or somebody gets hurt. I think Stott immediately goes up top, but I don't think it's a regular thing.
All right. Before we wrap this up, we haven't talked about the starting pitching at all. And the reason we haven't talked about the starting pitching at all is because it looks good right now and we feel great about it. So there's nothing to talk about. Like, Andrew Painter looks good. And I want to get to him. Like, that's where I'm actually going here. But, like, Zach Wheeler might be back in April. Awesome. I think I don't know if I said it on here or maybe I think we did talk about this. Like, right now, and it's only been reinforced this spring. This is not a take that I've come up with in the last 3 days because I feel great about it. I said this a month ago. I believe that Jesus Luzardo is going to finish in the top 5 of NL Cy Young voting this year. I believe it. I feel it in my gut. And there's nothing that has happened this spring that makes me feel any different about that.
No, and the other thing that, and I'm with you. I think Luzardo is bound for a monster year. And the thing that, we talked to him after his last start, went 5 shutout innings against Minnesota, through 77 pitches. Of those 77 pitches, Bobby threw 25 changeups. It was more pitch he threw more than anything else. Now, he admitted afterwards they were trying out different things with it. They want to kind of see how it plays in certain counts and against certain types of batters. So they were experimenting a little bit with throwing it. But he's also admitted that he changed his the grip on it, and he's no longer throwing a circle change. He's now throwing a split change, and so this split change now has more of an action like Sanchez's changeup does, where it is heavy and it drops off the table at the end. It might be a tick or two slower than it was last year, but it has such dive at once it gets to home plate. It gets guys really off balance, fishing for it a lot more swing and miss. If that is becoming a big part of his arsenal, on top of his sweeper and on top of the fact that he throws 97, my goodness, like, he could become that dominant of a pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen stretches with him where it's like he's lacking an answer, like where he's either on or sometimes it's not, and unraveled on him. Yeah. If he has something that he can go to that we haven't seen previously, it just opens the whole thing up. And I mean, it was, I believe it was, I want to make sure I attribute this correctly. I believe Derek Shelton told Jason Stark after the game against the Twins that he's like, this looks like this is the best stuff we've seen this spring in reference to Luzardo. Look, I mean, it's hard not to feel great about him. It's almost impossible not to feel great about Christopher Sanchez. We're at a point with him where, last year, this time, I think we said, we see all the talent, we've seen the production, but is this for real? Like, do we know for sure that he's going to be consistently excellent? And I think that he's cleared that hurdle. Does he have the same exact season he did a year ago? I don't know. But can we comfortably say that this is a top of the rotation arm? I certainly think so.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And then, with Wheeler where he's at. So then let's talk about Andrew Painter. First of all, I see what others have seen this spring in these first couple starts where you're like, okay, like he looks like a major league arm. Does it look special? No. It's also March 3rd, March 10th, March 16th. Like, how much stock can you really put in that? I thought was very encouraging the other day. I will say that. It's funny though. Like, and again, this might be just a unique to Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. He throws 30 pitches and you see all these charts and fastball shape. Have you ever heard the phrase fastball shape prior to 2024? And as it relates to one player or one pitcher in particular, have you ever heard it more than you've heard about it from Andrew Painter this month in spring training games? Like, everyone's a friggin' expert all of a sudden on fastball shape. Like, come on. What are we doing? Here's 20 pitches against some team in Bradenton. His shape doesn't look like it was 2 years ago. You can safely write him off.
Yeah. I want to read something to you, Bob. Now, I'm a big fan of Lance Brodzinski, right? Who does has that Substack where he talks about all of the prospects and pitchers, and he also dives into changes that major league pitchers are doing. He uses video. He's very analytical, right?
Yep.
And it might be a lot for the traditional baseball fan. You start diving into this stuff and it's like, oh man, this is a lot. I just want to watch a guy pitch, right? But just in reading what he says it appears Painter's trying to get back to his pre-TJ arm slot and incorporate his sweeper more. And so like that was part of the thing. He said, despite underwhelming results at AAA last season, Painter's still a great pitching prospect and hasn't aged out to a point where you're dropping him considerably on a list like this. This is the top 40 pitching prospects. He says that his release is nearly a full foot above average, obviously because he's tall. His slider shape is also one of my favorite pitches on this list. It has more velocity, lift, and sweep than your average slider. And it's also posted swinging strike rates that are mostly platoon neutral with good zone miss. You got to love terminology.
Platoon neutral, right? Baby. Let's go.
Right? You got to love this terminology.
Into the weeds here.
Yeah. And he said the pitch is in the zone a ton, a testament to his strike feel on the offering. And he said, go back to 2023, Painter was ripping a big sweeper close to 40%. Since TJ, he's held the pitch under 15%, but these points are connected. He just hasn't had the same feel. So it's really kind of an interesting thing. I think that slider is going to be the determining factor. If he could get the feel back for that slider and really have it be a key part of his arsenal, I think the sky's the limit for Andrew Painter.
Yeah, and I mean, look, he the other day he threw 52 pitches, and a couple encouraging things. One, I know that the velocity tailed off a little bit by the fourth inning, but he still averaged over 96 miles per hour at the fastball. So that's up a little bit from what we saw in the first couple starts. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily look like explosive deep in the zone, but like to me, it's directionally going in the right way. The slider, though, was what sort of jumped out the other day. Like, he threw it. I'm looking at it live here. He got 8 swings on that, and 4 of them were whiffs. Like, that was where it was kind of exciting. You start to look at some of those secondary pitches and go, okay, maybe we're not going to see the fastball explode 90 at a ton of miss. Like, that has not been what we've seen this month. And maybe he'll get there, but it might take a while. Or maybe it doesn't happen at all on a consistent basis. But the secondary stuff looks super encouraging to where you say, like, what does that mean for this season in the short term? Yeah, there's going to be ups and downs. And I think there's going to be times where he walks off the mound and we go like, oof. But I think we're going to see those flashes too. And that secondary stuff, I think, is going to be competitive enough where you feel good about him sliding into the role that you need from him this year. What does that look like 2-3 years from now when you need him to be a top of the rotation arm? I don't know. But like, does he profile as a okay number 3, good number 4 right now? I think so.
Yeah, and I think he's going to look. They haven't. Did they say? I mean, I might have missed it. Did they say he's going to pitch the fourth game?
No, but I mean, in my mind, mentally, that's what I'm asking him to be.
I think he might pitch the fourth game. I don't think it's going to be he's automatically 5. Like, I think he might pitch the fourth game, and Taijuan Walker will pitch the 5th, and then if Wheeler comes back, then he slides back into the 5 spot. But I think Painter is going to pitch the 4th game of the season. It's my guess.
Yeah. So I mean, I want to talk next week. Put all this together.
Yeah.
You know, going into the season, what's the expectation? What do we really think here?
We got to do our annual predictions next week.
Are the Dodgers inevitable? Right? Like that's going to be a big part of, I think, how we look at this season. But it's going to be tough to process because, like, let's just say that the Phillies play really well and that they, are consistently on pace to win 93 games, 95 games, and the Dodgers are putzing around out there and they're all hurt and all their pitchers are hurt. And you go, oh man, look, the Dodgers, see, like, you can't just show up and expect to win year after year after year. But like, by October, they're going to have 11 guys that are throwing 99 plus. Like, so it's going to be really, I think it's going to be hard to take in the season because you're looking not only at the National League East, but you're also looking at what's going on with that team out west.
Yeah. We'll do that. We'll dive into that next week. And just for the guys who've asked, I guess we had a couple guys join us late. Gig 5087 was asking about A-Rod's comments about Dante Nori. And then Chris said, will we see Dante Nori at the bank this summer? We discussed that earlier in the show. So
we didn't talk about A-Rod, but
yeah. We talked about Nori. I would say just bounce back to the beginning of the show. And you'll get the Dante.
Real quick, what do you make of the A-Rod stuff? Like, I talked to 2 GMs who had said that he'd start for us right now. Like, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's A-Rod being A-Rod, right? Like, I don't know.
I think what I'm asking you is, do you believe that he talked to 2 GMs?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if he actually did or not. Like, maybe. Yeah. But that's okay. I mean, look, I maybe there are GMs who said that he's a starting outfielder in the majors. Yeah. Maybe they didn't say he'd start for us right now. I mean, what team needs a center fielder right now that would start Dante Nori ahead of who they have? Colorado Rockies? Like, I mean, like, what GMs did he talk to? Right? Yeah. Like, I don't know. So I do take it with a grain of salt. But he is
play that back. By mid-May, we might be saying the Phillies.
Yeah, I know, right? Could be the Phillies. So, hey, one last thing today. Did you read Jason Stark's column this week about the changes that they're going to implement in minor league baseball?
I have not.
To test?
I have not. So
first of all, I had no idea, Bob. Tell me if you knew this. Did you know that second base was not 90 feet from first?
No, I guess I didn't know that. Should I be embarrassed? I didn't know that.
I didn't know it either. So if you're embarrassed, then we could be embarrassed together. Okay. So the way it is, and it was funny because I was sitting at lunch with Jason, and he put out a napkin in front of the table and on the table, and he said, "All right, now the napkin is the diamond." He says, "So first base and third base are at the left and right corners, and home plate's at the bottom corner." He says, "Well, where's second base?" I said, "Well, it's the top corner." He says, "It's not. It's halfway beyond the corner. So like half the bag is above the corner and half the bag is below the corner." Okay. So they want to move. They're going to do this in AAA this year. They're going to slide second base down closer to home plate. All right. In doing so, it actually gets closer to first base.
Yes, that makes sense.
But if you tie that in with the rule change they made a couple years ago where they made the bags bigger, all right, second base will now be over a foot closer to first base than it was 4 years ago.
Okay.
That's wild.
Now, I did not read the piece. Is the genesis of this that they want to create more activity, more action?
It's more stolen bases. Yeah. People like stolen bases. They want more stolen bases in baseball. That's the genesis behind it. Now, again, this is something that's being tested at the minor league level. It's not a guarantee to make it to the majors, but they've tested things in the past that ultimately got there. And I think that that's the one that probably has the most likelihood, if you ask me, of the changes that are potentially coming of actually getting to getting to the major leagues.
One other thing, since we're on that train of thought, what have your impressions of ABS been this season?
Well, I think, and this is a story that's going to need to be written at some point, and probably early in the season.
Did you see how all the Phillies shrunk? Did you see that tweet? It was like Phillies tailgate or whatever on X.
Yeah.
Talking about how like 5 different players have gone from like 6'2" to 6'1", 6'1" to 6 foot.
Yeah.
Apparently it's been done for ABS because they need to really give more accurate data.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that JT is going to be an ABS superstar. He hasn't missed yet. I think he's 5 for 5 or 6 for 6
in baseball again because he can track ABS. I love it.
Well, I mean, so ABS is going to become the new framing for catchers, right? Like if you're good at determining if that's a strike or not, and an umpire just misses it and you challenge it, like it can impact outcomes of games.
Well, certainly. I mean, I can tell you straight up, there's no world in which this does not occur this year. You're a catcher. You believe you have it right. You don't. And then later in the game, you second guess yourself.
Yeah.
And you don't pull the trigger when you should. And it will certainly have an impact on what happens. So being good at it, being confident in it, that is going to be a key component of the catcher's experience this year.
Yeah, like I asked Stubbs about it. He said that because he did it all last year in AAA, and he said that he was about 56%, which was around the average. I think it was just slightly above whatever the International League average was. I think the average was like 54.5, and he was at 56. So it was slightly above average. JT hasn't missed. Like, he's going to miss at some point, but he has not missed in spring training.
Do you expect it almost to be exclusively Real Muto or whoever's behind the plate for the Phillies to make those calls? Like, will we ever see a pitcher go, whoa?
Yeah, Rob has not, and he said he won't tell us what the ultimate plan's going to be on challenging. But I got to imagine that they're going to say when JT's catching, it's him and him alone that calls this, because he's so good at it. Now, maybe if you have Marchand or Stubbs or whatever, maybe a pitcher can challenge at that point.
One of the other things, real quick, because I do find that fascinating. I think that there's a little bit of a game inside the game here. Do you think like where umpires are at and like they just understand the evolution of what has occurred here and how this is being implemented, that because there's so much data, I think that you're much more bound to getting it right. Like, you have to get it right. We can judge the accuracy of these calls by the second. But like, if you were to go back, think about this, like in the early 90s, you have Joe West back there and you got a guy challenging him, and like what that would have done for the dynamic between the catcher and umpire, the pitcher, the hitter, and the umpire. Do you think that there's like anything to this, like where an umpire is standing back there and going, we're doing this right now on this pitch, like where it has any impact on what happens moving forward?
No, I don't. But what I'll tell you, I think it will do is I think it will show people that umpires are actually pretty accurate.
No, especially now that Angel Hernandez is not effective.
Right. I mean, I'm saying there's a couple guys who are going to struggle, I think. But for the most part, you're going to find that umpires are pretty accurate.
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty good at their job.
I mean, we've seen that. We've seen players, obviously have disagreements on the field and get upset and angry. But by and large, like, they will tell you that these guys are pretty good. And some of the players that did not want ABS to be implemented say, like, they're good at their jobs.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think that's the thing that you're going to find. I mean, there'll be calls will be overturned, yes, but I don't think it's going to be. I don't think you're going to have a game where an umpire is so bad behind the plate that he keeps getting challenged and he gets like 12 ball calls overturned. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. I think at most per game you're going like 3 or 4 challenges total. Like, I really don't think you're going to get a lot in a game. And if there are between two teams 220 pitches thrown and only 3 or 4 of them are challenged, that should tell you just how good of a job that the umpire is doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
All right, get us out of here.
Well, that'll do it for us here on Phightin Words. As always, you can find Phightin Words on wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora. It's a great place to find us there. But best place is right here to subscribe to us on YouTube. Click that thumbs up, ring the bell, make sure you never miss a show. You get an alert that Bob and I are going to go live. And I think starting, we'll do one next week in advance of the season, and then in season, like we always do, twice a week. We'll have a show talking Phils. And if you are listening to the podcast feed and you want to find us on YouTube, it's youtube.com/@Phightin_Words. So for Bob Wankel, I'm Anthony St. Philip saying thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you again next week as we get ready for the 2026 Major League Baseball season. Have a good one, everyone.